welcome to the pre-match press conference with Liverpool Women's head coach Gareth Taylor ahead of our WSL fixture with Aston Villa on Sunday at St Helens Stadium. We've got one person in the room and then everybody else is online. So we'll start with Radio Merseyside.
Hi Gareth, congratulations on being nominated for Manager of the Month for January. I just wonder if you feel that's perhaps recognition of the progress, not just that you've made, but that your team has made in the last month or so.
Yeah, I think it's always nice. It's good recognition. Of course, you know, you're only as strong as the team that you have around you. And, you know, January was a good month. There were 2 home games. We've gone on a small run. We'd like it to be longer, and let's see how it goes with Sunday's game coming up. But I think our home form has been good of recent times. Of course, I've said previously that we feel like we are a better proposition now than probably what we were pre-Christmas, and that was obviously down to being able to bring in some players that can help the group that we already had. So yeah, I feel we probably wanted more from those games, in a sense of not so much necessarily the Tottenham game. I thought we were very good, but the London City game was a game where we were still probably a little bit more of what we were before the new year, where it was less players available. So yeah, but I think it was a real positive for us, positive month, and yeah, it's something that we wanted to build on. Obviously, that result against Tottenham was a real positive for us. Unfortunately, we didn't do that at United, and that was a little bit disappointing because felt, and we certainly spoke about this with the players, that we probably played a game that was more suited to United being successful. And for us, it was playing with more courage and playing a little bit more with our identity, which would be the best way for us. But I think it's good to go back to St Helens this weekend. Looking forward to that challenge. Looking forward to the game. And certainly a game where we feel if we get our game plan executed really well, then we have a good chance of winning the game.
You mentioned your form at home there. Obviously, you're up against an Aston Villa side who are inconsistent in terms of their results recently. How big an opportunity is this weekend to try and get that run going at home in particular? Do you see sort of home form as being key for you for the rest of the season?
Well, yeah, it always is. It always is. I think like St Helens is a good environment for us to play in. Obviously, with our supporters being there, it obviously gives us that additional kind of lift. But yeah, I think that, like you say, Villa have been inconsistent in their both performances and results, so they can fluctuate between doing well and then not doing so well in terms of the result, and certainly in terms of their performances. So they're an aggressive team. I think it's pretty obvious what their game plan is going to be, and we've made sure that we'll highlight the areas that we feel we can exploit.
Just looking at the league table, all of the bottom 4 have picked up at least a win in their last 3 matches. How difficult will it be, do you think, to climb above the likes of West Ham, Leicester and Everton?
Well, we're just seeing it at the moment is taking everything that we can. We know that those games, when we play against those teams, are going to be really, really important. But we also feel that there's still progress for us to be made in a sense of climbing our way out of this situation. But I don't see us probably, unless we go on a really, really strong run of winning games, you know, overturning that before the end of the season. I think it's going to be really close, and it's about us holding our nerve, showing courage. Again, things can change rapidly. You know, if we go and win at the weekend and do really well down at Chelsea and get something there, then things look really different for us. But we're just taking each game as it comes. I think it was a positive, obviously, Tottenham, because although other teams potentially took points on that day, it just really kept us in touch. And I think that's where we want to be, is in touch when it matters, when we have to play those teams. We know that those games are going to be really important. So, yeah, and for us, I think the longer we go on this process, the longer we would have had the likes of Denise in the building, the likes of Aurelie, the likes of Martha. You know, we're still really fresh as a team in terms of working with those players. It's not like a pre-season where we've had like 6-7 weeks working with them. So we're still forming relationships on and off the pitch, but the signs are really good.
Thanks, Gareth. That's all from me.
Thank you.
Should we go to Olivia next?
Hi, Gareth.
Hi.
So Are you now seeing any improvements in your game management compared to earlier in the season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I've always said that we were coming up short in a number of areas pre-Christmas, and they were due to mitigating circumstances. I feel like we look so much better now without the ball. We look really fit as a team. We look robust. And you can only really do that when you have kind of options to turn to on the sidelines, which we didn't have. Now we have that. And I think we're in a much stronger position to be able to go and execute what we need to do in our game plan. So, yeah, for me, it's great when you don't have those excuses. Because when you look at the Man United game as an example, I would say we needed to play with more courage. We needed to play where the spaces were, and at times we were a little bit too direct going into Martha. Now we know Martha is really good at holding the ball up, but connecting with her in those type of long ball situations are really difficult. So yeah, I think there were some frustrations. We know that Man United are way ahead of where we are as a team. But that's the exciting part, is we want to strive and get towards that kind of setup that they have at the moment. And it takes time, but for me, it's tracking in the right direction. I think the training levels have gone up, the competition levels have really gone up now. So great that we've got real competition in a lot of areas on the pitch, and adding that bit of quality to the team has been really helpful.
And are you expecting Aston Villa to test you in any different ways compared to your recent opponents?
Any different than United? Similar. I mean, United have players with pace and power. I think Villa's game is built on that a little bit. They try to pull you into spaces and then try and hurt you on counter-attacks, and they've got players with pace and power, there's no doubt. But certainly feel there's areas that we can certainly exploit, particularly in possession. I think our out-of-possession game plans have been great. Players have executed really well. Pressing's been really good. I think the pressing was very, very good against Man United. Just the only difference was that they used the ball better than what we did. They gave it away just as much as us, but when they won it back, they tended to do a little bit more with the ball than what we did. So that's where you always be judged. I think without the ball, we look really, really more like the team that I really thought that we could be. And I think, when you look at 4 or 5 months of being in the building, that's great that we were able to now train it, now execute it on pitch. Of course, it'll always be about scoring goals, how we're going to manufacture chances. I think outside of the United game, in terms of the kind of data that it showed us, was that actually it was a fairly even game. They had a few more shots on target than what we did. So I think there's positives to be taken from that game for sure. But, I think against this Villa team, we need to be really alert to the danger, and making sure we're really imposing ourselves on them and make them defend in every opportunity that we can.
And how important is it to keep improving those performances when the results don't always go your way?
I think performances have always been really key for me. They don't determine the result, but they give you a much better chance of a good outcome. That'll always be the case. I've always prided myself on performance, and I think if you can't perform for 90 minutes, then you always look at spells within the game. And again, the Tottenham game was probably like that. We weren't effective in every moment of the game. We were very good without the ball. We caused Tottenham a lot of problems with our pressing. We created opportunities before we scored. So yeah, I think my message to the players after that game, and I'm using that game as an example for your question, would be, even if we'd have come away with 0-0, I think we would have been really pleased with the performance of the team. Felt like the last 20 minutes it was us who was in the ascendancy. We looked like we had that extra energy, and thankfully we got the rewards. You don't always get the rewards from your performance, but I think performance is something that most coaches will look at, that are pretty much going to give you the rewards that you're looking for.
Brilliant, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over to Tom.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Gareth. Thanks for your time, and congrats on the January Manager of the Month nomination as well.
Thank you.
Can I please just ask your thoughts on something that came out this week about the Women's FA Cup, where the FA proposed to seed the top 4 in the WSL and separate them in the draw? I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts on that, and what that just whether or not that's something that you would welcome or disagree with in the Women's FA Cup.
Yeah, we were just discussing before because we thought this might be a topic that comes up, and I think it's fairly new. That seems to be what you're telling me is like the headlines of it, where teams are seeded and they tend to come in later on in the competition. I'm not too sure about that, particularly for the FA Cup. I mean, WSL teams come in at the later stages anyway. I think it can sometimes dilute the competition a little bit. FA Cup is like a special competition. It's really magical, and yeah, whether the reason and the rationale is because we're now having 2 extra teams, more games. We've obviously had some adjustments to the League Cup. I think the FA Cup is very special, and sometimes I understand that the game is always about like how can we improve it, how can we make it better, how can we make it more entertaining. But I think it's very much a situation at the moment where there's nothing wrong with the FA Cup. It's not broke, so we don't really need to fix it. But again, I don't know the full story, and if obviously the FA gave up a good reason as to why they're thinking this way, then I could probably give you a better comment.
Thanks, Gareth. And could I also just ask you your thoughts on the news that Brian obviously left Everton, a sad one, I suppose, to a fellow manager to see that. Just wondering what your thought. Only he won a game as well before the news, and just wondering what you made of that, and just does it show maybe the volatility of and the difficulty that comes with being a head coach at this level? You know, that it's so uncertain.
Yeah, again, I mean, all of us head coaches will have real sympathy for when a head coach loses their job, and you know, Brian had been in that role for a while. I think he was arguably one of the longest serving coaches. We were having that discussion this morning because I can imagine like the longest coach in the job at the moment is probably Mark at United, and I think that kind of range of period used to be probably 4 or 5 years. Now it's really reduced into probably the longest serving is probably maybe 2 years maximum. So it is volatile. We don't know the ins and outs of what goes on in each organisation, so it's really hard for us to give comment. But you know, what you do feel as a head coach is sympathy when someone loses their job, because you know, everybody's trying their best, and you come into a role and inherit a load of issues that, you know, are not your doing, but you're obviously culpable for it, and you understand the kind of volatility of the job. It is what it is. Is it right? Is it fair? No, but like football's not fair. It's just sometimes that's just the way it is. So I enjoyed coming up against Brian. I think he's a good guy. I really do. I think, you know, overall, I think he'll look back on his time at Everton, and I think he did some good things. You know, he would have tried super hard to move the club to the level that he wanted to get it to, and that's effectively what all of us are trying to do.
Thanks, Gareth. Wish you good luck for the weekend, and sorry for the bad signal that I've got right now, but hopefully you heard me okay, and take care.
No problem. Thank you, Tom.
And just finally, Steve Hunter in the room.
Gareth, just ask you for an injury update. I understand we've got a little bit of bad news about Sophie Lundgaard, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately for Soph, just on the match day -1 before United, she went into a challenge and has come out of it on the wrong side. So yeah, she's going to have surgery next week. I think it's a low kind of shin injury around the ankle area, but which is a real shame because she worked so hard to come back from the previous injury. But she's been really well supported. She'll get the surgery done next week, which is going to be great, that we can get that done and get her back on the road to recovery. But yeah, I think outside of that, Beata is getting closer to be available for potential starts. I think at the moment that's still a little bit away from us. And yeah, outside of that, I think all of the players have pretty much come through, a few little niggles here and there, but it's nice now to be going into these games and these really important games with as many options as possible.
And hopefully you'll have Anna available again in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, Anna's the one. That's the main one. It's been a real shame actually, but I think it's good that she's been able to transition into the club in the right way, get strong, get healthy. But she's going to be a real strong player, I think, for the club. Of course, we see her for being here as a Liverpool player for many years, but again, us head coaches want all of the options, and I think she'll be a really good one for us when she arrives.
Thanks so much, Tom. All the best on Sunday.
Cheers, Steve.
And that concludes our pre-match press conference. Thank you to everyone who's joined online and in the room. Enjoy your football this weekend.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.